The Titanic distraction because the global elites are afraid. Now, while the news headlines were dominated by the Titanic submarine, you might have missed what was really going on in the world. Of course, that's by design. Just like a good magic trick that uses sleight of hand and distraction to get you to look over there. While they apply the trick, the elites and the mainstream media have been working hard to do the same thing. But while most don't realize is it's because of fear. They fear you. So in this video, I'm going to break down what actually happened while you were distracted by the submarine. And it's the real stuff, the stuff you need to know about. We're going to break down the new tool they've built to continue this magic trick setup, what their real motivations are for this, and of course, exposing all this so you see it, you know it, and you have a plan to have success in your life, regardless of what they try to get you triggered about, what they try to trick you into, and more. So let's go. All right, welcome back. If you're new to the channel, my name is Mark Moss. I make these videos to change the way you think about money because almost everything they've taught you is wrong. Everything you know is wrong. And if you don't understand the rules of the game, how to play the money game, you're going to get left behind. But don't worry, I got your back. Just stay tuned in. I'm going to walk you through this. We're going to get through this together. So let's dive deep into this right now so you can figure out what this lens is you should be viewing the world. And now I do want to say just real quick, just in case anything were to happen to me, I have a newsletter down below. I'd love for you to join it, my sovereignty newsletter. If you want to build, grow, and protect your wealth, build your personal sovereignty so you're not affected by any of this stuff, I have a free newsletter. I send it out once a week. You can join it down below. I'll put a link. All right, now real quick before we jump in, I want to show you a video you might have seen before. It's a little scary and creepy. Let's go ahead and play that video.
Our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these stories simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
All right, so this video shows news channels. These news channels, it's a group of news channels. They reach about half of all U.S. homes in the world. They all get the same programming, as you can tell, word for word. And what they were saying is they say that the threat is platforms using their own personal bias and agenda to control what people think. That's what they said. Using their platforms and their agenda, personal bias to control what people think. Well, they, as a conglomerate across CBS, ABC, Fox, etc., reach half the homes and they're reading in lockstep unison. What they say is that these independent news sources are a threat to democracy because these independent people like me, small platforms, might use my own personal bias and agenda to control what you think. My one small independent platform? No, they're conglomerate reaching half the nation reading the same message in lockstep is what they're talking about. So who's really controlling what people think? Remember the submarine? Of course, how can you forget it? The Titan, going to check out the Titanic. Now, while that was going on, I was traveling Europe with my family. We took a 3-week trip, went to Italy, went to Greece, went to Egypt. It was amazing. And while we're over there, my wife kept talking to me about this submarine. Hey, Mark, did you see about this submarine? Hey, check this out, check this out. And finally, I think we were on an airplane at the time, maybe going from Italy to Egypt. And I looked over and I said, why are you talking to me about this submarine? And she's like, what do you mean? It's like interesting. It's in the news. I said, but really, why are you talking to me about the submarine? Why are you talking about it? Why are you thinking about the submarine? She didn't really understand what I was saying, but I said, it's because we think about what they want us to think about. It's whatever the current thing is, right? Do you remember the meme? I support the current theme. So whatever is the current thing, they make it super interesting. So we want to talk about it. Will they have enough air? Will they find him in time? Can you believe who they are? This kid didn't go on it. Do you know who these parents are? It's like all of these data points to keep us talking about. Whatever the media wants us to talk about, that's what we talk about. And it's never what we should be talking about. And they do that to keep us distracted. What do we miss? What was going on in the news cycle that we should have been paying attention to that we weren't? While we were watching the Titanic, will they live? Will they die? I'm chewing my fingernails. I'm eating popcorn, whatever. The Navy knew all along that it was already gone. They knew since Sunday that it was already over. But of course, they don't let those pesky details. They wanted to keep us distracted, and distracted from what? Well, did you know JP Morgan and the Jeffrey Epstein emails were released? You probably didn't know that. What you maybe didn't know is that the JP Morgan deleted about 47 million emails, mistakenly deleted emails. And in those emails were subpoenas to provide information, files that regulators were actively trying to find in regards to multiple investigations and probes that they were doing. Probably didn't know that. Did you know that Joe Biden was impeached? There was a vote to impeach him, I should say, in the House. Now, when Donald Trump had votes to impeach him, that was 24/7 in the news cycle. Now this is happening to Joe Biden, but you probably didn't know about that. Maybe you didn't know that the Pentagon fat fingered and sent almost $6.5 billion missing to Ukraine. And that money, that $6.5 billion that went to Ukraine, was reported as missing and somehow just coincided with an attempted coup in Russia. Did you know that Hunter Biden just got a slap on the wrist while FBI whistleblowers are going missing? Did you know that the John Durham report in the congressional hearing came out about the Russia hoax and showed that it was all made up? It was all paid for by the Clinton administration, which of course you probably knew that. Did you know that the USDA approved the sale of lab-grown meat from 2 companies, of course, backed by Bill Gates? Now, you probably didn't know any of that because you were all distracted by the Titan. Now, while they're telling us the greatest threat to our democracy is misinformation, who's the one spreading the misinformation? Everything we were told about the pandemic and the vaccine and the laptop, all of those things, they knew in advance were a lie. You remember before the election, I think it was the New York Post posted on Twitter about the Hunter Biden laptop, which I couldn't even talk about on YouTube at the time. Now I can. And of course, those accounts were deleted. Anyone who retweeted them, they were deleted. There was a full censorship about that. Then the Biden campaign at the time, I think, or administration put out a letter. I think it was signed by like 55 intelligence professionals saying that it was all fake. Like 55 people had signed on to this. Fact check me on the numbers. It's something like that. Signed onto this letter saying that it was all fake. But in 2019, they already knew it was real. So who's the one that put out the misinformation? Now, you might have heard of it called other things in the past, like propaganda, or maybe redirection. We're the ones doing it, so we're going to say it was you. Whatever you want to call it. Only way to pull this off is with total control and censorship of any dissenting views. Now, anything, rational, anything real like that will, of course, take over. So, of course, they have to censor that. And censor it by who and with what? Well, let's cue in the brand new censorship industrial complex. Now, we know that the government has been engaged in censorship designed to shut down unapproved viewpoints because, of course, you can't be trusted. You can't be trusted with, pesky things like truth. But thanks to Elon Musk opening up the Twitter files to the public, we now know just how rotten and corrupt the White House, the FBI, and Twitter were in terms of influencing the 2020 election. They were crushing voices that said that vaccines weren't really safe and effective. They aren't. They even said crazy things like Russia's winning in Ukraine. Now, Twitter literally created a separate portal just for the FBI goons to target individual Americans and to deplatform them from using Twitter. Now, Facebook and Google, they're even worse, but because they're still under the same control, we don't have any internal files like we do for Twitter, but I'm sure it's worse. But this is all an unconstitutional violation of the First Amendment for the U.S. government to engage in any type of censorship of this kind. So instead, the FBI and the White House, they use Twitter as a kind of, private sector hatchet man to cut off anyone who dissented from the government's agenda. Now, this is the public-private partnership that the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab talk about and promise to give us more of. Just when you thought that having both the government and Twitter engaged in rank censorship of everyday Americans couldn't get any worse, guess again. Don't ask that question because guess again, here it comes. We're now learning that the Twitter FBI censorship activities went way beyond silencing critics of government policy. But why? Isn't misinformation a threat to our democracy? The old punk rock band NoFX has a song where they say, "What's the point of democracy when ignorance is celebrated?" Well, that's a good line. It's a good question to ask from a punk rock band. And they're right. How can you have a democracy when it's misinformed? How can you have a democracy when people are misinformed? Well, you can't. And that's the whole point. You see, they want you to stay out of democracy. They don't want democracy. Sure, the globalist elites like to talk about democracy, but in reality, They don't believe in it. Hang on, before you start leaving all these comments in my video. I know the United States is a republic. I grew up saying the Pledge of Allegiance, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God. We are not a democracy. However, look past this for the point of this video. All right, now back to the video. When the UK voted for Brexit in June of 2016, the globalists were stunned. They couldn't believe it. They did everything they could to delay, to fight it. How could these people want to leave the globalist agenda, the EU? Let's stop it. Then, of course, when Donald Trump won the election as president in November 2016, the globalists were even more stunned. Like, what? They went into complete denial. They went into full-scale denial. They put their heads in the sand. And, of course, they went into full-scale attack, Steele dossier, all those other things that they did. But they comforted themselves with the convenient myth that Russian interference lost them the election. I mean, it couldn't be that our ideology, it couldn't be that our ideas are being rejected, could it? It couldn't be that the people don't like these things. No. It's just they just don't know, right? But yet, it kept getting worse for globalists. Both China and Russia have now become nationalistic. They completely turned their backs on globalism. The war in Ukraine has only intensified that trend. Even within Europe, we can see globalism is being rejected. I mean, just look at what's happening in France right now at this very moment. Look how nations are rejecting the ESG, the climate, and the migration ideals that are being forced on them by the EU and the Davos globalists. Now, the pandemic only strengthened the trend away from globalism, and the ongoing supply chain issues we've been seeing expose globalism's fragility. Now, these chains may have been efficient, and they might have been economical, but when they break down, it has a massive rippling effect on the entire global economy. It's like pulling on one strand of a carpet, and then the entire thing unravels. But here's the thing. The globalists, they don't trust you. As far as globalists are concerned, voters can't be trusted to vote on fundamental issues like Brexit. You don't know enough. You're not smart enough to know what you want. They also can't be trusted to vote against presidential candidates like Trump because, of course, such decisions should be beyond democratic control. You know, at least that's what the globalists believe. When you hear things like it's a threat to our democracy, what they really mean is that you are a threat to their own version of democracy, which of course isn't democratic at all. It's not about you. It's not about we the people. It's about an ideology of the globalist elites where we the people, we don't have any say. Think I'm going too far? Do you remember about the last U.S. presidential election? Right after that, Time magazine ran an article gloating about how corporate and media elites essentially conspired to prevent Trump from winning the 2020 election. Now you can see how clear this is with the media refusal to cover the Hunter Biden laptop scandal. And like I said, banning accounts, shutting down anyone talking about it, saying it was Russia disinformation. But of course, now we know all along, since 2019, they knew the laptop was real, like I talked about before, but they couldn't allow you to know that because that's a threat to democracy if the people know. Now, meanwhile, we know, again, recent disclosures from Twitter revealed the extent to which the company worked with the federal government to censor viewpoints they didn't like. The bottom line is, when elites don't like the potential outcome, they just change the rules. So, what do we do about this? Do we sit back and cry and be victims and say, woe is me? Well, no, that's not what I'm doing. Now, what I do want to do is stop watching the media BS. I was talking to someone from China and they said, why does everybody watch the news here? And I'm like, what do you mean? I mean, I don't, but why? I know a lot of people still do. They said, well, in China, we just know that it's all state-run media. It's all propaganda. Nobody watches it. So take that into consideration. Stop watching this media BS. 2, watch independent news sources. Watch me, sure, share. By the way, like it, subscribe, and share this with somebody who you think would benefit from this. But watch other independent news sources. Practice critical thinking, which of course they don't want you to have. Potentially stop watching all this together and focus on yourself. That's the things that you can control. Now, while a lot of you, I see the comments, and then I'm sorry if you're one leaving these comments, I don't like them. People play victim. What can we do? The elites, there's nothing we can do. Our vote doesn't matter. Of course it does. It's not really affecting your life. I'm out here living my best life. I just got back from 3 weeks vacationing with my family in Europe. I'm still eating meat every day. I'm still going to the gym. I'm still getting healthy. I'm still loving my family. So stop watching all together and focus on yourself. The only way that you're going to be able to turn the tide against this is if you build your own personal wealth and you build your own personal influence. That's the only way. The world depends on you getting your stuff together. That's the ultimate action to take. And of course, the other action to take is leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about this video. Will you focus on yourself and build your wealth and influence to change the world? Or are you going to sit back and be a coward, a sheep, and a victim? Let me know in the comments down below. Of course, as always, give me a thumbs up if you like the video. If you don't, give me a thumbs down. That's okay. But at least tell me why in the comments down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And yes, share this video with somebody you think that could benefit from it. Oh, by the way, in case something happens to me, join my free newsletter. I send it out once a week, about 5 to 10 minutes of a lesson that you could use every single week. There's a link down below. That's what I got. All right. To your success. I'm out.